Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Well, today's conversation looks at the dramatic impacts when kid's father has been sent to prison. But my guest today will be telling you about what she learned and how that changed her life for the better. How that changed her life to think about the pain she was feeling and find a solution to that pain from her father being in prison. My guest today is Jay'Aina Patton. She was just 3 years old when her father went to prison for 8 years. Whereas most kids suffer from shame, hurt, loneliness, and guilt, JJ, as she's known, was wise beyond her years and knew she had to find the strength to motivate her father. They started by building a communication website, and that platform was used to share letters and pictures of what she was doing daily and keep in touch with her father. As we all know, buying stamps or even posting a letter can be quite expensive. They utilizing the website, which of course was scrutinized by the guards. But this method made it very easy for a young girl to be able to communicate with her father. I'm super excited to talk to her to understand where this initiative came from. Why is it that so many women and young kids need to go into the tech space? How is she and her father building out this tech platform that they created now he's out of prison? What next for them? What next? What does she hope for the future in terms of encouraging more young women, more colored people, Black and brown people to get into this space? I'm so excited. Meet my amazing guest, JJ, as she shares her story. Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to Painless Universal Conversation with myself, Anne Welsh. Today's conversation is one I truly am fascinated by. A story of really a sad story that turned into joy. A young lady decided that she needed to communicate with her dad, and her dad also decided he needed to communicate with his own daughter and his kids. Through his own doing, unfortunately, he ended up in prison. And from being in prison, he didn't want to just stay there, losing touch and hope with his kids. So they formulated a way to get in touch. Join this conversation. How are you, JJ?
I'm good, and you?
I'm wonderful. I'm absolutely delighted to have you share your story. I mean, it's really inspiring what you and your father have done, to stay in touch. And what's even more fascinating is that you didn't just do it for yourself. You decided to do it in a larger scale and help others who might be going through similar issues. Before we get started, who are you?
I am Jay'Aina Patton, 17 years old. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I'm just a little kid at heart who just finds joy in helping people all around the world who go through things and who sometimes don't have the resources to help themselves. And I find enjoy in doing it for others, even just simple things like for my family. It's just something that's always been a part of me since I've been little. I love to help and bring kindness to the world.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad we have you on this world because you truly bring so much kindness to the world. Can you tell me a little bit about your background growing up?
Yes. So as I said, I'm from Buffalo, New York. Um, I grew up here from the time since I was born until I was about 10 years old. Buffalo, New York is the third poorest city in the nation. It's a very, very high crime city, just a lot happening. And for most of my life living here, I lived in just extreme poverty. My mom was very young when she had me. My father went to prison when I was 3. So it was kind of a struggle just growing up here, not always having the resources to do things that will probably excel me in the future. It didn't take until I moved from here that, I finally start getting into things that was going to brighten my future. But many people who live here just don't have much hope because it's a very, very just bad city, and it's not much resources for here for people, especially that, are Black and brown like us. It's a huge community of us, but not much resources. So growing up here was very, very tough because my mom had to raise me as a single mother very young, and had to figure out how to raise a kid on her own living in a city like this.
Can imagine, because it's always difficult, especially when your dad was in prison, and then it was just your mother, and dealing with all the struggles of being a single parent, because now your dad is in prison. There's no way he's making ends meet
Yeah.
for what he's providing, so she has to take that responsibility. And taking on responsibility means you tend to neglect the children because you have to
Yeah.
earn your income, and these are this cycle of life which we tend to see and repeats itself.
Yeah.
So when your father was sent to prison, your mom was alone living and looking after you guys. How was it? Can you just tell us the struggles you guys had to go through?
Yes, it was very, very hard not having him here to help support us because there were just so much that we had to figure out and do on our own. And me being only 3 when my dad went to prison, I didn't understand it at first. I didn't really understand that my dad was gone and he just was like going to be away from me until I got older and I realized, oh, like he's, in a bad place. He's going to be away from me for a long time. But I never had any, resentment towards him or felt very bad about it. I always tried to see the light at the end of the tunnel and just think about how I still had him, because growing up where I am, there's a lot of instances where people will lose their parents and specifically their dads to incarceration or death. My oldest cousin, we're very close in age, we're very close. And her father, my uncle, passed away when she was just a baby. So we kind of always had this thing to relate on that we both didn't have our fathers, but I technically still did. Like I knew that he will come home and I will still be able to have him. So I always kept that in my heart because I'm like, there's so many kids like my cousin who don't get to have their father at all. And I do eventually. So, I tried my best to, keep that positivity, but I know that it was way more harder on my mom having to figure out how to always keep food on the table or always make sure our lights were on, because there were many moments where we had these times where we didn't have any lights or electricity or food. And she always found a way to do it gracefully. It always, it never was a moment where I felt like we were super, super down bad. Like we definitely were, but my mom always made it seem like we were just perfectly fine and she had our backs through it all. Like she really, everything she did was to make sure that her kids grew up and had a great future. And I really applaud her for that because she really did a great job.
I applaud her as well because it's never easy. It's just not easy
Yes.
at all.
Especially being so young too. I don't
Exactly.
know how she did it.
I think she must have a great community of friends as well that probably supported her along the
Yes,
way.
yes.
Always helpful. And when you said you were just 3 when this happened to your dad, when did you realize, or what age did you realize I need to start having communication with my dad again? When did this really struck you?
Right. It was probably around 6 because I remember the first time I went to visit him, I was around 7. So around 6 is when I realized, like, wait a minute, like, I haven't, like, where's my dad? Like, I haven't talked to him in so long. Like, I never see him or anything. So that was around the moment where I'm like, okay, something's up here. Like, I need to be somehow communicating with my dad. And I finally got to visit him. And from there, that really, really helped us because we got to do letters here and there, and talking on the phone was just like, it's just so expensive. And the same with letters, it's a lot to get stamps and take it to the post office. My mom didn't have a vehicle, so doing these letters back and forth was always hard. But once I had that visit with him, even though we still had minimum communication then and afterwards, it just was very, crucial to our relationship because we really got to bond with each other, because the last time we seen each other I was 3. I barely knew anything, barely remembered my father. So being able to have that moment with him was very, very great because it really helped our bond.
I have to ask, so what is Photo Patch Foundation and how did it get started?
The Photo Patch Foundation is a nonprofit organization that helps kids who has incarcerated parents communicate to them through letters and photos, all for free. So it started from my dad when he was in prison. He went to prison, like I said, when I was 3, and it was very hard on him because he was striving to be a very hands-on dad, even though he was a young father. The couple years that he did have with me, he very cherished them very much, and he loved being around me. So now that he was in prison, it was very, very hard on him, and he can see different men in the prison also going through the same thing. So he could tell this was something that was a very, very big problem. And he had just gotten into like coding in prison. He was teaching himself how to code. And he just came up with the idea of maybe he can build this foundation in this website that will allow children that's like me and parents like him to have this kind of communication with their children without having to go through the hassle of money problems and figuring out how to do all this, through the mail and stuff. More and more people, the technology was just coming on a big rise. Apps were coming out. It was 2008, so like the first iPhone had just came out. So more and more technology was being a big use. So he's seen that this can be way more convenient and helpful towards these family and kids. And once he came home, I was about 10 years old, and I saw that he was doing coding. I thought it looked super cool. I asked him to teach me. He did. And by the time I was 12, I built the app because I thought, hey, this would be way more convenient for kids. I know how it was not talking to my father. And kids have phones more than anything nowadays. So it'll be way more easier for them to use our app and communicate with their parents all for free. So they don't have to go through so much struggle just to talk to their parents that they deeply want to bond with.
That's true. That's really, I can't believe, because it's actually, you don't think about it. Stamps
Yeah.
cost money.
Oh, yeah.
Telephone calls cost a lot of money.
Yes.
And there is this initiative, because I always say to people, out of our own pain, our own struggle, we find, if we look deep, we'll find solution. And then you guys, your father and yourself decided to work on this solution in creating this unique not-for-profit organization that creates an app that people could now communicate. People who are going through similar pain like you guys were going through could now communicate, especially the kids, and not having
Yeah.
to pay for it. I mean, and share pictures, their updates, and just do things that, yes, I miss that, my dad. I
Yeah.
know he's done something really bad to get him in there, but at the same time, I still miss that presence of him in my life. And this is just something that gives me a good presence to be with him. So
Yes.
I'm so glad that you guys have talked about this. So you're now 17 and you're helping high schools, right? And you're helping them in this area, helping them run your foundation to make people more aware about it, learn about coding. To do this must have not been easy for you too, especially with your dad being in prison. How did you learn coding?
So yes, I learned coding once my dad came from prison when I was 10 years old. He had taught himself to code while he was in prison. And when he came home, he was lucky enough to get himself a job in the coding industry. And he was very, very, in tune with it. He loved being able to do it because it was so different than what he was used to growing up in Buffalo. Here he was just into different things and in the streets. So being able to have a strong, source of actual income, and it's something that's very reliable, he was very in tune with it, and he knew that it could help change his family's lives. So it was something that he was just constantly doing. And me being a young little kid and missing having these years away from my father, I'm like, this is something that he's always doing. So obviously it's cool. And I want to be able to bond with him. So maybe if I learn this thing that he loves so much, we can bond over it. So I will always just sit over his shoulder and watch. And then one day I just asked him, like, can he teach me whatever he was doing? And he was beyond excited to teach me because he's like, my baby girl wants to learn this thing that I'm so passionate about. So
Yeah.
he taught me, and I learned. It didn't take too long. And once I got the fundamentals, I felt ready enough to, start a couple projects and then go forward with the app.
So since your father has come back, I mean, since he's been released from prison, you guys have expanded this then. And so it's now going, nuclear, more and more family has access to it. What
Yeah.
joy have you got? What feedback have you got from this family about the joy this app has created for them?
We get so much feedback. We have this like kind of thing that we get like emails of feedback from people. and we just get so many good ones. But one that I, love to emphasize on the most is, it touched me so deeply. It was one from this little boy, and he was only like 3 or 4 years old, and we got a message from him saying how much he loved our app and that he got to talk to his dad all the time. And he didn't know how to spell, but the way that he was using our app was through the text to speech. So he was using the little microphone to talk about his day and send pictures and stuff to his dad, all on his own, not having to worry about, going to get stamps or getting stuff printed or having to use his mother's vehicle to do this. He can use the phone that he already has and talk to his parents. And it was just so, so cool to hear that from a little child, that they're able to use our app and is impacted by this, like 3, 4 years old, like my sister's 4. So to think about something like that, it was very, very heartfelt.
You've gone on to create the second version. You went on, the second version of the photo, which version of the photo patch app.
Yes.
So the first version was because I'm trying to get this right. You had the photo patch foundation. So that was the foundation.
Yes, we had the foundation and just the website.
Yes.
And then I ended up building the app.
So you went on to launch the photo patch app.
Yes.
And this app, tell me a little bit about this one that you created, because this is now your baby. Your father was the one who worked on the website because he learned that.
Yes.
He learned how to build the website in prison. But you said,
Yes.
Daddy, this can't stop here. The app is something greater. Tell me about the app then.
Yes, I just knew that the app would just be way more convenient, that, technology has been on a rise and hasn't stopped. So I just knew that it would be convenient. And it's just something that I thought would be very fun. After learning how to code, I was, dipping into different projects, and I had tested out, building a website and everything. And I knew that an app would be very key. So, being able to hands-on build it and add different features that I knew was going to come alive and make these families be able to really use it was very, very cool. And now we have version 2 of our app that just makes things even more smoother for families to use. Like, we have a system where before they even send their pictures and letters out, we'll scan it for them and make sure that it's something that will be able to be sent to the prisons, because prisons are also very, very strict of what comes inside. So, we can just be taking a picture and I'll have like the peace sign up and they'll say, oh, it's a gang sign, and now they're sending it back. And now, your letter has never made it and you're like wishing and hoping like, oh, I can't wait till my letter gets to my dad, and then it never makes it because you didn't know you had a simple error in your thing. And that's a very common thing that's why it gets hard sending letters, because it's always some mishaps. The prisons can be very, very just, they kind of want to make it hard on you. So we have different systems where we make sure that these families have no worry and no hassle, and they can make sure that they see along the way where their letters are going, and just different systems within our new version of our app that just makes it so much easier for these families, and it can really be beneficial towards them.
And now you're also doing the Unlock Academy.
Yes.
And that one I looked at the website. That is really great, because that's really unlocking potential for the younger people. Tell us a little bit about the Unlock Academy.
Yes, so the Unlock Academy was started by my father in 2018. After he was, very into coding and he had his coding job, he just seen how beneficial it was to him and his family. And he knew once again that this can be something that can help other people's family. We're just such a giving kind of family that we just see whatever can work for us, or where we see a problem and we found a solution, we can just implement it to other people. So he just thought if this was working for him, he knew that coding was not something that was very prominent in Black and Brown communities. So just thinking that how this changed his life, it can do the same thing for others. And it's not very targeted to us in a way that makes it seem like it for us. Like, you see a coder on a movie and it just seems like something that's crazy and it's some alien language, and it's always like a white guy with glasses on that's nerdy. So, to us, it makes it seem like, oh, this isn't something for us, but really it is, and it can change so many lives. So he thought maybe if he just started, a program in a school that he can teach other people that look like us to do the same thing and change their lives, that would be very cool. So he started it, and then he was going to, he was asking me about us doing a kid kind of course together. And I was like, no, Dad, I'm actually going to want to do it by myself. I got this. You can take the adults, I can take the kids. I know that it was super cool and not that hard for me. So we thought like if we both just took it on and put in a way that was very relatable and easy to understand, the message will come across very well, and we can just help different people that look like us get into this. And since then, we've got a super, super strong tribe, a bunch of students who just love taking these courses, love coding, and just many, many stories of how this changed their lives within just an instance. And it's exactly what our goal was. And we've just been helping out. Like it's very cool.
Jay, to do this coding, one of the things with this Unlock Academy is to help people. Today we
Yes.
live in a tech world, and whether we want to live in here, and we're having this conversation because the ability of tech has
Yes.
given us the opportunity, rather than me having to fly you in, or having to do it this way. What are the potential? What advice you tell the younger generation, people, especially the brown skin color, the black girls, the black boys, black and brown, that the reason why they need to get involved and jump on this opportunity now?
Yes. I just would tell them like, don't get discouraged because you don't see people who don't look like you, because that's the way it's made to look. But trust me, it is the percentage of us in this industry is very, very low, and we have to change that, because as we can see, tech is just taking over everything we see in our lives nowadays. It's just tech. And especially since the pandemic hit, we were doing things more and more virtually and more technology based. And the top richest people in the world right now are all coders, but at the same time they're all white men, they're not women, they're not anybody of color. So it's like we need to step into this industry and make noise to show them that we can do the same thing in the same way that these big tech guys can out here changing the industry with technology and making long-term careers for themselves and their kids to come. We can do the same thing. It's something very, very special that we can really insert ourselves into, because technology is not going to slow down anytime soon. And we don't want it to take over us because we're scared of it and we think it's not for us. And then, we don't know how to use it and now we're left behind. No, this is something that we can really use to our advantage. And if we learn and get into it now, it can just be super, super beneficial, especially for younger kids. You start now, and from there, you can skyrocket.
One of my biggest problems I find with tech, especially with being a woman of color, I think is the access to finance.
Yes.
There are a lot of people have these great ideas, know what they want to build, but the access to finance is not there. Especially
Yes.
when you look at the funding track record, you see the number of Black people that are being funded is almost now, I think, since the pandemic, that has almost been wiped out, almost
Yes.
non-existent. There's so many platforms helping people like you, ourselves, to get on that funding ladder. There's one thing doing this as a not-for-profit, but at the same time, to build a community, you also need profit to build a community, to build your organization, to build your home. What are you doing to help them to change this thing so you could start earning and treat it as a business where you guys can make money from it and eventually, hopefully, IPO it one day?
Yes. So yeah, me and my dad have had talks like this all the time about how we want people to be able to use their creative ideas, but actually be able to have the resources and funding, like you're saying, to make it possible. Because like you said, it's very, very minimum right now for any of that to be happening. So it's something very much that we've been working on a lot right now, so that we can make sure that not only people are learning the skill, but actually have a chance to be able to use the skill. So we've been able to partner up with many different companies like Facebook and Google that will be able to give people that we've taught a chance in their industry and be able to fund their ideas or give them a job or internship at their company, so that now they can take their skill and turn it into a career, instead of, like you said, learning this and having these ideas but not being able to have the resources to actually take it to the next level. Because that's where the biggest problem lies. You can know the skill and learn it, but if you don't have the resources to actually take you somewhere, it seems like it's a waste of time. And it's not. You have to find, the right ways to do it. And that's something that we've been trying to make bigger and bigger a part of our mission so that we can help many people who have these sort of dreams.
And drill it down now that you're a woman. What is it like as a woman of color, to represent and speak to other women to encourage them to be part of this STEM education?
It feels very cool because I think, somebody has to start. It's not many leaders and people like me that are here to inspire other Black and brown girls and women to do things like this. So I feel like if I'm the one who have to, make all the noise and start it, it's beneficial because then I tell the next generation and then now they're comfortable to do the same thing. And then, maybe, in a couple years and stuff, I'll be forgotten, but then there'll be somebody else who took the baton and did the same thing. And that's totally fine because as long as we have somebody to keep this going and keep delivering this message, that's all that matters because it's very important. And it feels very good to be able to be that person who can kind of voice this so that they feel like they have somebody instead of no one.
Well, congratulations. HP recently featured you in a film and told your tech story. What was
Yes.
that experience like?
It was very, very cool. It was something I've never done before. And it just was, so I was super honored to have them want to share our story on such a, broad platform like that. And it was a very, very nice experience. They were very inclusive. They included our family into it. And, the whole time we were filming, they just made us feel very like they actually cared about, what we had to say in our mission. And it was very, very cool to have such a platform, feel that way and do that for us. So it was a surreal experience. And watching it back every time just really makes me happy and excited that, they shared our story and now other people get to watch this and, take something from it.
One of the things you said, which I love around really, I think this is one thing that gives me the joy over and over again talking to you, because it's just that all this started from the pain you felt when your dad
Yes.
was in prison and you could talk to your dad, and this whole thing created an interest in you, a hunger, a desire
Yeah.
to do something about it, and not just a desire, but a desire to change the world. And then you made a very valuable quote. You said your goal is to get 10,000 women of color into the tech world on
Yes.
your own. And I thought, wow, this is so amazing. It's not you just learn from it, but your goal is actually to really empower women and get them there. How is this going?
It's going very great. We have a scholarship that's, getting started, and it's to get these women to take courses from us and offer free so that they can have a 2-year course and so that they can feel like they have the ability to learn these skills without feeling like they have to, figure out, money and everything. So it's something that I'm very, very proud of and trying to just make sure that it's going to make a very big impact because I'm super excited about it. And I really want to make a difference. I really want to see the tech industry blossom and be way more diverse. So if this is what it takes, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm hoping to, go beyond that goal, do more than just 10,000, keep, stepping it up year by year and not just settle with that because that's just, a starter, something to get the ball rolling, to get people moving. And then from there, have more people hop on the train and just really hear me out on this mission because I think it's very, very important. And I'm super excited of where it's going and all the things that I have planned behind the scenes and just different things that I'm trying to work on to really, really make sure that this, comes to life in the fullest effect.
17 awarded you this 17 voices of change. What impact do you have, or what change did it give you by having this award?
It was very, very surreal. It impacted me in a very big way because, it's a very big platform and it's, I didn't expect it. I didn't like, I don't know, it just was very surreal when I got the opportunity to do it because for them to, label me as someone like that and really, hear my story and, feel good about it. And it was just super, super cool to see them recognizing me as a person in my work because, it just was it was very awesome. It was super surreal. It still is. Like every time I think about it and I, revel in it, it's just super awesome to be, recognized on such a broad level.
Jay, there's so many young people thinking of doing what you've just done. I'm very nervous about it, thinking, oh my goodness, I don't think I can even make this. What will I even start? Uh,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to any young person who might be interested in coding?
My advice would be to just go for it. That's what I did. If I would have just, sat back and been like, "Ah, should I try it? Should I do it?" I probably wouldn't have because, you know, as go-getter as I am, I can psych myself out about stuff. And I know that a lot of other people can do the same thing. And if you battle with yourself for too long, you're gonna like wish later on, like I should have just did it, and you're never gonna be able to do it. So just go for it and try as hard as possible to not let anybody try to break you down, and anybody who doesn't have your back and don't support you, just let them go. Focus on the people who are going to be by your side. And if you can't find anybody, well, you just have yourself. And as long as you believe in you, you can go ahead and do it, because it doesn't matter how many people are rooting for you. At the end of the day, maybe, at all along, they weren't really, they were just kind of like shading you. So as long as you have in your heart and your mind that you are wanting to do something, you should just go for it, because you never know what can come from it and you don't want to regret it later on.
My final question, I really enjoy talking to you, but I have to ask
Yeah.
you, you're truly a voice of change and you've just done so much. You've changed the way people who have parents who unfortunately have to go are in prison. You've changed that way of that communicating with you, working with your dad to achieve such greatness. What's your
Yes.
hope for the future? What next for you?
I have a lot of different things that I'm trying to look forward to. As of right now, I'm going back to school next year for senior year. I've been homeschooled for the past 4 years, so just trying to do, I guess, normal kid things right now. But, from there, it's just all about still going on with this mission, making my impact stronger and stronger, and trying to figure out different ways and more impactful ways to keep changing our world and bringing more kindness and awareness and just, love and peace to this world, because we need it very much. It's been a tough few years, and anything that I can do to try to, bounce back on that and help people, and especially people from my community and those who look like me, that's all I want to do, is to really just make some impact and help as many ways as I can.
Well, I'm really wish you all the best. Thank you so much for this time, and I hope this platform you created, this organization you and father have created, I only wish success for it, because I believe this is something that would change the way we look at business. This would change something, would change the way we have communication, especially a lot of people who are going through that, missing out in the parents, and also other people who their parents might be traveling, they might be in the army, they could be in different
Yes.
sections. This is a big platform which I see more than just
Yes.
people whose parents are in prison, but I see
Yes.
on a bigger scale and a bigger level.
Yes, and that is our next goal. That is our next goal, to help on a broader aspect, not just like you said, with people in prison, people everywhere, because a big thing we focus on is that, kids have a right to talk to their parents no matter where they are.
Yeah,
So, we want to make sure that we can help with that, and not just those in prison, but eventually everywhere around the world, kids who can't talk to their parents.
thank you so much. I appreciate this.
Thank you.